Hello again, everyone. Welcome to this tutorial on Python Basics. Today we are going to study about functions, and we are going to create our first function on our own. So the basic agenda of this is understanding the basic structure of the function, understanding naming criterion for the function, and creating a very simple function. So let's jump to the command prompt. Let's have a look at the basic structure of a function. So I already have written a code, which you can see over here, but there are actually three functions, but let's start with the more simple one. The first function named as hello. As per the convention of writing a function in Python, we first of all start with a def keyword, and then we provide the name of the function followed by the parenthesis, and then a colon. And after an indentation block, we tried the code block for the Python function. Now, as you can see, we have named this function as hello. And in the code block session of this function, we have just executed a print statement. Pretty easy. So what function actually does and what function is? Actually, it often happens that we have some sort of functionality or code editor in Python or any other language, and we want to execute it again and again without rewriting it. So what we do is we take a unit called function, and we organize our code over into that function unit. By doing this, we can actually call that function again and again. And that improves the code organization, and it also improves the usability of the code to somewhat level. And here we have created a function, and we have put functionality. Print hello world over here. However, it is overly simplistic, and we can type print hello world again and again. And it is quite equal to just typing hello. But in a long run, it turns out to be a very useful practice. So let's take this code and try to execute it. Now, as you can see that nothing happened, and we just have the interpreter. And why so? So to understand this, we have to first of all understand that once we create a function and define it, until and unless we don't call it, the function doesn't execute. So obviously, if there is a function that has to be called, that could be called by any other person just like me who is running the interpreter, or that could be called by yet another function. We will deal with that case later on. But first of all, let's see where are our functions. So a friendly friend, the dir function, will help out in this case too. As you can, apart from the other variables which we can ignore, we can actually see the hello keyword over here. So this is our function. So that means when we executed this first function .py Python file, our function got imported. So let's try to run it. To call this function, we will just type its name followed by parenthesis and hit enter. As you can see, the code block of the hello function got executed. So now what we have to understand is a function can have a lot of things. For a very basic reason, I will explain this in a very simple term. A function can have an input value or input values, and a function can have a return type as well. It just acts as a very basic processing unit. And with every processing unit, what we exactly have is a way to put input and a way to accept output, and the same with function. We have an input and we get the return. However, in any of the functions I showed you so far, it doesn't have any return type. But in the later function, which I'm going to describe, we're going to have a return value as well. So let's quit it and check out those functions which does have some return type. For example, let's check the isOdd function. Now what this function does is it takes an input and call it n. Now this n is checked through a case condition of if it's an odd number or an even number. Practically, if we divide any number by 2 and the modulus operator return the 0, then it is an even number. Otherwise, it is an odd number. So that is what we have done. And we have taken the end and applied the modular operator over here. And if the output is 0, therefore this number is even. So the function returns false because in this function we are checking for odd, not even. But if the condition isn't so, we'll fall to the else block of this function and we will return true. Okay, so let's try it out. Now let's again hit the dir, my apologies, and you can see the isOdd function here as well. which has got imported. So let's execute it. Since we can only check over numbers regarding the even and odd condition, we are going to pass a number over here, since this number is actually odd. Therefore, the function returned true. Had it been even, it would have returned false, as it is the case. So this is yet another very simple function. Let's go back to our file and check yet another function, the convert to integer function. Here in this function, we have kept a try-catch block. And what it does is it actually looks for the value error. And what we are doing here is we first of all take a string, which contains an integer actually, and not an integer actually, it contains a number. And we try to convert it into an integer and return it to the user. And if any sort of invalid values is applied, then this returns string and it prints on the screen invalid value conversion, and it returns us nothing. So python.py again. And again, if we want to check just to make sure, there is the convert.toInteger function, and we got to supply it some value. Let's try to supply it 123, and it returns us the integer 123. So if it returns it, can we use or store it in a variable? The answer is yes. So let's store this value in A, and just to make sure that it returned an integer or not, we can type check this. And we get that it's an integer type. Fine, it's working fine so far. Let's do something like this. And as you can see, it prints me the error called invalid value conversion, which I actually put the message in the except block of this function. So I think we're good for functions for now. This was a very simple description of functions, and we encountered with input values, return on type, and defining the function. What you can do is you can go online and check out for more functions. In our next tutorial, we are going to understand the input parameters in detail and return data type in detail as well. Thank you.